Well, I'm half expecting at some point in this show's run, probably sooner rather than later, for them to reveal that it wasn't, sexy fun times that powered them up. Until that day comes, they want us to believe that's what happened. And for that, I mean, hey, nothing wrong with a little bond merging, as they like to put it. So, when she soundproofs the door and locks the door and gets on top of Red, his response is, "Please be gentle." And then the next morning, they can't really look at each other, and everyone collectively is like, wait a gosh darn moment. And they censor the words, and they don't really correct them. And everyone collectively is like, why are you guys talking about how you clap cheeks in front of the royal door here? It's not really appropriate. I'm half expecting it's going to be that, oh, they were actually just all night experimenting with how the bond merging powers work. And Red was probably very embarrassed because he got titties in the face. But they had the opportunity to correct it if they were going to, and the fact that they didn't this episode has me saying, hey, they were indeed clapping cheeks to get them bond levels up. Huh. You know, I had more people than usual be like, hey, I'm really excited for that Red Ranger video. Which is interesting, right? Because the show does well enough on the channel, but people don't really, like, go into other videos to be like, I'm really excited. So I was like, oh, maybe there's going to be a death or something, or maybe, like, big shocking moment. Nah, you guys are just horny bastards. I'll change my tune eventually, but for right now, we're going to award this the best isekai of all time reward. Just for the fact that it wasn't even just the fact that they potentially did it, it's the way they censored it and how they explained it and how they're like, everyone collectively wasn't like, oh my god, people had the sex. They were just collectively like, you horny devils. Or they're like, hey, is it really appropriate to talk in front of this room here? Probably not. Like, they both handled it so maturely, but also so comedically in this combination that I guess is best described as bond merging. And hey, I do love me some good bond merging at night, so I get it. Of course, you want to support my work, see my full thoughts on these episodes, we got the Patreon, full live reactions available exclusively over there if you're so interested. Man, what an episode. There was something like, the whole episode I was thinking there was going to be a shoe dropping. I just wasn't expecting the shoe drop to lead to where it did. Because this woman, she didn't give me like evil vibes, but she didn't give me like super nice vibes either. But I wasn't sure, like, there was obviously going to be some conflict here, because you look at Yihdra as a character, like, she very much was not getting along. And it's kind of interesting, and I think there's definitely some game series and worlds that I've seen with kind of like the restriction of magic and laws and regulations, and whether that's a group overseeing them outside of mages or mages themselves doing it. Pretty much like we're in a situation where it's kind of similar to our own world, where there's licenses and regulations, whether, guns, cars, medicines, and the like in his world. Here, it seems like there's like a lot being restricted. And as Yihdra says, well, yes, like to some degree she gets it, but there's a lot of tools that aren't a threat, but are just really valuable. Like, to restrict that is anti-progressive. And I completely see where she's coming from. And I think I've always looked at it in a way that's like, if you gave mages complete free access compared to your average person, it's not a good idea. Mages would reign supreme over everyone. And, bad shit would happen. Like, you shouldn't just allow anyone to fire an AK-47 when you want, right? And I think it's interesting watching how, like, really they just need to come to more of a middle ground, and whether or not that middle ground's going to work long term or not remains to be seen, but I do think we're closer to getting there now, because like the idea of like having someone who's very good at acting with authority versus, someone who has good ideas and maybe like, hey, maybe we shouldn't go this far, but maybe we should do it like this, and how it can all blend together is a really cool thing. And they had a moment in this episode which both acted as a bait and switch, because you thought it was going to lead to a misunderstanding sexy fun time, and then just immediately was not, which makes the later scene all the more impactful, quite literally. So she gets pretty upset with Red, because Red, like, goes on this long-winded speech And it sounds like he's like not siding with her, and for Yihdra to be like, hey, like I really thought he was the one person who got me, who understood me. She runs away, and honestly, in her defense, she did listen to 90% of what he had to say, and it did sound like he was not taking her side. But they immediately clear up the misunderstanding rather than dragging it out an entire episode by him flying on one of his boss and them crashing down. That scene immediately resolving something that would normally be an episode or sometimes even an arc's worth of conflict for no freaking reason got resolved. And, you know, like I said, that's the scene where I'm like, okay, embarrassed, like, oh my god, is he on top of me? We're gonna do something. And then he's like, no, 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 I'm a gentleman. Like, that's kind of how those scenes would normally go. They immediately like avoid that, and I was like, oh man, he had the opportunity to be cringy in all the right ways, and then they up themselves. They say, no, we're not going to give you the generic. We're going to top that. So we learn about how if there's an emergency, the Rangers can be summoned to each other, right? They show it in the flashback of how it would work. I'm not sure if that's actually a thing or not, because I'm pretty fuzzy on my knowledge of Ranger series to begin with, but it sounds like something I remember from my childhood. Either way, the fact that she's in the bath and she's like thinking of him and needing him, and he goes into the bath, and how that leads to, okay, we need to enhance our bonds. Soundproof door. Locked the whole night. They were bond merging that whole night. Whether or not that meant they were transforming together, they had that skin-to-skin embrace to really have a... Because it's true. Someone you slept with, you are going to have a stronger bond with someone you just casually work with. My kind of Power Rangers is all I'm saying. I think if they had more of this, they had more of these types of moments when I was growing up, maybe I would have stuck to this series a little more than I did. This show's funny, man. It feels like 5 different shows sometimes, but each of those directions, I'm like, I like where you're going with it. And it's like, it's constantly at odds with itself, whether if it's a straight up isekai or if it's a straight up Power Rangers show, but it works. It really, really does. And I think rather than just having it be a misunderstanding or we know and no one else does, the fact that the next morning everyone collectively, not even just in our cast, but the side cast in this magical building are like, why are we talking about this out? Like, you're being a little too bold. Like I said, I am half expecting it to be that they were just transforming or using their powers together all night. But until that day comes, we can assume cheeks were clapped all night long. And as Red said, is just please be gentle. That's all he wanted. I gotta assume Red didn't have much aggression in that, and he just laid down for the ride. Can't believe we're talking about this with a Power Rangers level isekai. You let me know your thoughts down below. Favorite moment? If you got any, you sick puppies, leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around, of course ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got TMG Gaming 999, Jorid, Jacob Bedugal, Sage Narf, Andre Cannon, Real L Chill, Christoph Simswoski, and we also have a JMW, so I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and y'all have a good one.